Conventional concept of women's sexuality is rather negative than positive. Women's sexuality can have negative impact in the sense that sexual pleasure is powerful enough to paralyze reason, and excess of sexual actions can cause addiction and psychological problems. Also, women are often perceived as sexual objects for men's sexual pleasure, women being victims and men being perpetrators. The perception of sexuality may be different for individuals depending on their thoughts and experiences, regardless of what is right and what is wrong. When discussing women's sexuality, people usually focus on things you shouldn't do and other negative aspects. They can hardly explain the reason and basis of the negative aspects. They also reinforce male-centered concepts of sexuality, causing even more negative concepts of women's sexuality. Not many people know that women's sexuality has nothing to do with men, and it makes women's body and mind healthy and charming when activated properly. It is important for women to activate their own sexuality, regardless of men. Problems occur when men try to take advantage of women for sexual pleasure, and women have negative perception on sexuality and depend on men for activating sexuality. When women pursue sexual pleasure, it contradicts with the negative perception of sexuality they have. Then confusion about sexuality occurs, and women may develop double standards. Women begin to destroy their body and mind, displaying negative ideas outwardly, but pursuing sexual pleasure inside them. The confusion on sexual identity is caused by blocking positive energy of sexuality and emphasizing negative concepts. It also causes problems of sexual assault, sex addiction, sexual perversion, and so on. Women's sexual pleasure is perceived as something negative in general, such as secrecy, humiliation, embarrassment, discomfort, and offense. Such negative concepts are manifested in language and behaviors, including threat, abuse, and violence, negating women's sexuality in the whole society. As negative concepts of women's sexuality is reinforced by public education and by adopting dichotomous standards of right and wrong, more and more individual social problems occur. Sexability training for women guides you to break away from the negative perception of women's sexuality and build a healthy body and mind independently through adequate activation of sexuality. You can become the most charming woman and may not be taken advantage of by men or become dependent on men for sexuality. You can live with the man you are in love with, having positive perception on sexuality and feelings of love and happiness. Negative perception on women's sexuality leads to prejudice on women and reinforces negative emotions. What you have learned so far about women's sexuality may be wrong and inaccurate and may lead you to unhappiness against your intention. It takes time and effort to change negative perception on sexuality to positive one. You will learn how to do it on your own through sexability training for women. It has nothing to do with men. Positive energy of women's sexuality can solve not only individual, but also social problems by activating the energy of happiness and the source of true love.